All right.
I love the nursery possible curricula, Play-Doh and Snuggles.
Yes. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here at the first of our two identical Seek teacher trainings, though I'm sure there'll be different questions at each one. And if you are joining us by video, hello. We're glad to have you with us, and we're so glad you're able to watch in this way as well. I wanted to just start with just a check-in. Most of you know what each other is doing in Seek this year, but you might not all know. And so I wondered if we could just start with your name and if you could share what you are doing this year in Seek so that we can kind of know who's in the room.
Do you want us to move the camera?
No, I think that's okay. Yeah. Thanks, Sheila.
I'll start.
Great.
I'm Kate, and I've signed up. I've gotten on the Trello board for the 11:30 Seek Fun for younger kids. That's what I think I'm doing.
Right, which I think is
In development.
may or may in development. Yes, may or may not be sustainable. We'll see how that team goes. Yeah.
I'm Indara, and I am leading in the pre-K and kindergarten class, and also assisting with getting materials and supplies for the nursery and managing the sign-ups for the weekends. Yeah, mostly early childhood.
I'm Shayla, and I'm co-teaching along with Emily the Harry Potter class at 11:30.
And I'm Pam Williams, and I am helping with the neighboring phase, whenever that is. I think 9:30.
I'm Abby Dakin, and I'm co-leading Neighboring Faiths with Katie Towell, and I need to contact you get you set up for some days.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
Sorry.
And if anybody was gonna contact
Sorry, yeah,
me.
unfortunately it's I'm that part of the co-leading team, but unfortunately I've been snowed under at work and so
Yeah.
and at home. So
Can't imagine why.
And I did add Pam to Trello, so you've got
Yes.
an invite to that Trello board.
yes, we haven't actually started using our Trello board yet.
Oh, okay.
So
But
you
should I have
missed
gotten
nothing.
the invite?
Yes. We'll follow up with
Okay.
you if you haven't. Yeah.
Emily doing the Harry Potter.
Steve, co-leading the first through third theme explorations with Remo.
Awesome. And I'm Amanda. And for right now, I am doing sort of administrative oversight of Seek and working with the totally incredible Seek team. And with the totally incredible Indara, who I am deeply grateful is here. And we'll talk a little bit about, well, actually, we can do that right now, about sort of what the plan is for staffing this year as we go forward. Many of you may already know that because you have either been chatting with me about it or have read the extremely lengthy blog. I'll just show this for the video. With lots of FAQs about what's going on with Seek. But our current plan is to follow a model used in really a relatively new model. I think in part it's new because technology is what makes it possible. Recommended by the UUA and by Pat Infanti, who is the sort of UUA staff person who is in charge of religious education. That's her core portfolio. She's been working with congregations to bring in congregations in our position who are sort of without the director position in off cycle, right? Like the cycle for bringing in that position tends to be going into search in the spring, and then they start sort of over the summer in preparation for the next year. And so what they are recommending is a remote consultant model. So they will give us, in fact, already have given us a very few number of names of experienced directors of religious education who don't want to move for a non-permanent part-time gig, but who do want to be able to provide that kind of support. And so they will provide administrative oversight, support for teachers, lesson planning support. How do I make this Harry Potter lesson? It didn't really work last time. I need some ideas about how to make it resonate with the kids more, all of that kind of work. As well as supporting the Seek team and the community really at large with kind of change management work. So how do we think about where we've been, think about where we want to be, and figure out our next steps to bring in then and prepare for a search for and then bring in a permanent director of lifelong learning. So they'd be able to do all of that primarily remotely through Zoom and email and all of that. And then also likely coming in probably 3 or 4 times to do workshops with the community. They would be a contract employee, so not on staff. They'd be contracted separately. And so we've created a scope of work, which is still in draft form. We'll talk with a couple of folks who may be interested. And then part of the reason that has the potential to work for us is actually because we have Indara here on Sundays. So because that person isn't there Sundays, right? What they aren't able to do is the troubleshooting, the checking in, the making sure things are ready. But that is very ably covered. And so this person then is able to do some of the other stuff as well and kind of get us ready to think about what's the model that we want as we move forward. So we are in process with that. I have a few names. I'm contacting those folks, and I'll be staying in touch with the Seek team and with Indara as we kind of go down that road. And my hope is that we'll have somebody come into that position, like in the next few weeks. There's a xylophone telling me to stop talking. And then some of the administrative oversight that I have been doing, I will hand off to them. Though I anticipate staying quite engaged with Seek throughout the year. I mean, that I think is just necessary and helpful for the continuity of the programming.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, what questions do people have about that?
So, does that mean that you would start looking for a permanent person in the spring?
Exactly. So the way that timing usually is, you sort of start the search process, creating the job description, getting the hiring team together in the February-March timeframe. You put it out there into the world, particularly. So this is the UU religious educator timeframe. We might very well not end up hiring a UU religious educator. That said, the largest pool of people with these skills tend to be that are like fits for an ethical culture congregation tend to be from that world. And I would say actually it's been probably the place of the most crossover nationally. So Wes's very first religious educator was Muriel, or second maybe was Muriel Davies, who became a leader, an ethical culture leader. She was also married to a Unitarian Universalist minister, A. Powell Davies at All Souls, and then Pat Hordorfer is another example of the crossover. And so it makes sense for us to be on that timetable, even if doesn't guarantee we'll end up with a UU, obviously. So, and then you have the conversations in, April-ish, so that person, if they're in a congregation already, is able to announce in like early May, and then get ready to, if they're moving or just get ready to exit and come into a new program. Any other questions about that, the model that we're looking at, the process?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. Actually, Pam, it totally makes sense because most of these folks have interacted with this already, because some of them are on the Seek team, so they don't have questions because they've asked them. So that's great. I'm super excited you're here.
That's very helpful for the video.
It is, yes.
Do you have questions?
Yes,
Oh,
definitely. Yes,
Interacting.
thank you.
So are you aware of any potential ethical culture people or outreach to ethical culture people?
Well, we haven't started an outreach for the permanent position yet.
And you're dealing with the AEU or dealing with
Yeah, there's only one other society that really has
OADR.
anything like
what we have.
our Sunday school and anything like our size position. So which is St. Louis. So I know the DRE there. I haven't like reached out to try to poach her. Just want to be clear on video. So yeah, that doesn't. There are a couple of other ethical societies that have like quarter time people. So that would be certainly when we get ready, we will for sure be sharing with other ethical societies. I'll be sharing with the leaders.
Is Melissa still the person for
She's
AU?
not. No,
So is there one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I misunderstood your question. Though the answer is still no.
Oh.
It's no in both cases, no matter which question it was. So I thought you meant at Novus, and no, there's a
at
woman
the
came there.
AEU.
No, no, that position has been vacant or / isn't really a position anymore, since actually before that, during Melissa's time at West, before Melissa left West, she left that position at the American Ethical Union, is my understanding about the timing. I don't quote me, though I'm now on video about that. Like, I'm not positive, but I think it was beforehand.
That's true.
So that's right. Oh yeah, you probably would know, of course.
And they, Sonia was the ethical education team leader, but I think that because she's now president of the AU board, I think
She was just like a volunteer in that position, not a staff member, right?
I think Liz Collier, I don't know, there's another board member who's going to take on like a volunteer team leader role, because I don't think that they're going to continue that as a staff position anytime soon.
Yeah. So it's been at least over a year that there's not been a staff person there for the AEU. And I would say during that time, there's also not really been significant volunteer engagement with that on the national level. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, because I don't even know if how many people are in or consistently like in the education committee.
Right.
I think they were
Or
like
that they're meeting or...
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the few people that post to the listserv just to like keep it alive and share information.
Go, Emily!
That's what I do. So
Yeah. So there's not really that role or function at the AEU for us to be able to get resources from at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
What kind of process do you imagine so we had thought we were going to have this visioning summit, which was part of a process of defining what we would be looking for in a director of lifelong learning,
Absolutely.
or whatever we're going to call the position now.
Right, totally, yeah.
And so I'm wondering what you have in mind, or you and the SEEK team have in mind so far about that process.
So that's where the remote consultant coming in a few times, at least one of those times would be a whole community conversation of where have we been, where are we now, where do we want to go, that kind of visioning and creation work. So I think quite similar to what was anticipated in the spring and didn't happen, will indeed happen. With that person. The anticipation then was actually that Pat would come in and do it. So an outside person. I think one of the advantages of the remote consultant model is that you have somebody, the person helping the community do the change management work is also kind of been embedded in the community doing administrative oversight work, and so
and yet is far enough from it.
Exactly, is not on staff, is not in the community,
Doesn't have a vested interest in a certain outcome.
That's correct, right? Like, definitely will not be interested in the permanent position, because the whole point of the remote thing is they're where they are. They don't want to move, right? So, I think that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So there will definitely be at least one, and I suspect more than one opportunity for that kind of engagement from the community. That's what I've written into the scope. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. I was gonna offer printouts of my very long email, but I think it sounds like most people have read it. If anybody would like a copy,
I'd like to take one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Take one. I
Sure.
will leave it lying around the house and see who reads it.
Awesome. Okay, great. Just a reminder about how we communicate. So a Seek newsletter is sent to parents and teachers, and that newsletter goes out typically on Wednesdays. I think it was Thursday morning this week, but it references what will happen in the coming week. It lists the teachers that we have filling that week, right? Like it's not just the lead teachers, but this week it will be, Shayla and Emily teaching. And it notes if there's an opening. So if it's like, we have a class where Emily's not available, so Shayla's on her own, we have an opening, please contact either Shayla or Amanda or whoever it's appropriate to contact in that case. So that can be helpful, and it's especially, those openings can be helpful for parents who are not able at this time to commit to being on a teaching team, but want to be able to help out. Keep an eye on that Seek newsletter, and if you see an opening, especially if it's a class like pre-KK, where Indara makes it so easy for someone to come in and help because she has like full mastery of the curriculum and is totally on it, that's a great opportunity for a parent to just pop in. So folks on the Seek team, as you talk with parents who say, I can't commit this year, invite them to think about that. Just keep an eye on your Seek newsletter. There's pop-in opportunities often. One question I have is whether folks would find it helpful if we took sort of Seek related events. So that might be both major West Calendar events like the auction and Stone Soup Sunday, etc., and also things like Stream Cleanup Day is October 13th, and so parents need to send in boots on that day or whatever, right? Like, if we turned those into a Google Calendar that you could subscribe to and have it auto-populate your own calendar, is that something that will take work on staff to make happen? So I don't want to like create it and then have people say, actually, not a big thing. But if it would be helpful, I'm curious to hear from folks.
I think it would be helpful.
I think we'd use it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I'll keep asking, and if we get like 5 to 10 people that are like, oh yeah, I would put that in, then I think it's worth the, Robin will have to go through and create a new calendar for it. That's all. So I do have our 2019-20 year events calendar, which is available online as well and has been passed out. But if anybody would like a hard copy right now for your fridge, I'm happy to send that out. Robin has added this adorable tree. We did, if you are, as I'm sure you are, do you want one, Emily, or are you good? Tracking every month's themes and committing them to memory from the beginning. I think we all do that. Just a note that we did shift June's theme from play to imagination, which we did play a couple of years ago. We sort of felt bored with play. We were ready for something a little bit broader to engage in. So that has the majority of major events throughout the year. And people are people, and sometimes things do change. Just be aware of that. And we try to announce them, and we'll update the calendar, etc. But if you ever see something that you feel like isn't what this says, just ask the office, and we'll confirm.
And this is we're electronically. This is where can we find it?
On our website.
On the website. Good.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what the link is. I'm sorry. If you search, you should be able to find events calendar.
Are the neighborhood potlucks indeed happening on Sunday, October 13th?
I believe that they are. I have been in touch with Cindy White about that, who coordinates that, and I think I'm waiting. We're somewhere in a loop of talking about it, whether it's that date or she'll push it to a different date, and we just haven't closed that loop yet.
Okay.
So it is coming up, and so neighborhood coordinators will hear about it very soon. To confirm that date. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Any questions so far about events, how to find out about things, where we get information from, where we send information?
Kind of a tangential question. We had talked about possibly having a Seek person at the welcome desk to assist with questions and or remind people to register.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how far into the year we're doing that, and
I think that we've had that big Seek registration poster, somebody staffing that so far. Rima is the one who's organizing the staffing of that table. I'm just not the one organizing it, so she would be the person to talk to. Kind of separate from that piece is the question about having like family greeters at the welcome table. I think that's something that we have talked about for years as being, that would be amazing to have a family greeter who's able to, because of course, Indara's running around, I'm running around, like the staff are often not the ideal people. We try to greet people as they come in, and you know, somebody forgot a thing for their cart or needed a curriculum printed at the last minute.
And the welcome table folks are awesome, but they often don't know what's going on with Seek, right? They don't know where to direct
Now,
visitors to
I
go.
will say that this year the welcome table has a sign which has the age group, each platform, the age group, and where they're going to, which like downstairs, first classroom on the right, downstairs, first classroom on the left, etc. With based on a teacher request, we are going to put that information in every cart as well, so that every teacher will know. So if a family comes into your classroom and they're not the right age, you can whip out your handy little chart and say,
Nice.
it's not here, but let me tell you exactly where it is and direct them, so that we can all help each other. So we're trying to put in systems to make that as successful as possible, and like the capacity to be greeted by a family, including kids. I actually think it's great with a kid and an adult greeting. It's something we've wanted to put together and have regularly for a while, and it's just we've not been able to make that happen. I think in part it requires showing up a little bit early. That's hard for families to do. So I'm just going to put that out to the universe as a need and wish and desire, and perhaps it will come true. Yes, exactly. I would be happy to set up the tools needed to organize that, if that's something that people would be excited about. So,
Amanda, can I ask you an unrelated calendar question?
you may.
Pay attention. No. All Music Sunday. Is that intergenerational?
Some years it is, and some years it isn't. I don't think we've made a decision on it yet.
Okay. I'll put a question mark on that.
Fall what?
All Music Sunday.
All Music
In
Sunday.
March.
Oh.
Yeah. And I suspect a decision will not be shortly forthcoming because of transition and that leadership. Yeah.
Right, of course. And the coming of age for the sixth graders probably makes sense for them to come.
I think it would be great for the sixth graders to go to Coming of Age Sunday.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yep. And they love those kids too. Like they personally are bonded with those particular kids. I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Great. Thank you. Excellent questions. Any other questions? All right. Okay. So, that was the one handout I didn't print out. That's okay. It's going to be on our PowerPoint. So what I think I'd like to do is walk us through the PowerPoint training, which will be familiar to many of you because we used it last year as well. It's been updated, obviously, for this year. And just kind of talk through some of the elements as we go through them. That PowerPoint will be emailed out to every teacher, and it does have an exit quiz at the end. So teaching leads, ideally you'll send it specifically to your teachers. I promise they will comply more if you ask them to do it than if I ask them to do it, because it just the closer it gets to personal, the better. And there's just a really quick exit quiz to make sure that we know that people have taken it, because there is like first aid information and information about there's legal information in there as well as other stuff. So we'll go through that. I just want to also, before we do that, note just the challenge of classes for 2 platforms, and the Seek team has done such a great job trying to figure out the programming that will best serve our families. And we know that There are some families that, because of the sibling relationship in the families, it's like they got the short end of the straw, you know. X class needs to be at 9:30 because both that's when the teachers are available and that's when it works best for any number of reasons. And that's not 9:30 is not the platform when the sibling has the special class available. We are working hard to provide alternative programming like the Seek Fun programming, and we are that programming is not sufficiently staffed yet. And if we don't get it sufficiently staffed, we won't be able to offer it, obviously. So we're just still working on that piece of it, and I'm trying to set up programming at each platform that makes the most sense for the families that we have. And we know that it's just not, if everybody had just had all their children exactly, I don't know, in some sort of 2 years apart or something, then we could manage it. But people insist on having different kinds of families. And so we're working on it. And if anybody is really in a pickle, I would love for them to talk with me or talk with a Seek team member, and we can brainstorm with you about how we can make this work. Maybe this year your kid goes up a grade and is in a different class than typical because that's what's going to work for your family. We can make that happen. That's not impossible. Or, maybe, they are an older kid and they're going to help out in preschool.
Just come to both platforms.
Or just do what Shayla does and come to all the platforms.
Everybody's
all
here
the
all the
time.
all the time.
I had another quick question. What are our numbers like starting? I mean, how many do we have registered? How many do we expect?
So we have 35 families registered, and I think that's something like 50 kids probably. And they're still coming in. Registrations at no time in my 12 years here have registrations been equal to the children in the program, as much as we would love that were the case. The past 2 Sundays, and Dara, you've been doing attendance.
Yeah. I want to say there's roughly about 70 children that have attended.
Maybe 60
Maybe
to
a little
70.
bit less, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had good attendance by kids the first 2 Sundays. That's been great.
And is it more first platform or second platform?
This past weekend it was more first platform.
And is that sort of typical? I mean, it seemed like it was last year.
No, because the weekend before it was more the second platform.
This is why it's impossible to staff the platforms. Our younger kids tend to cluster toward 9:30. That's why you'll see first through third is at 9:30 and not at 11:30. There were first through third graders here at 11:30, as Kate knows, because they went into Seek Fun. However, there were maybe 3 or 4, I think, and there were like 7 or 8 at 9:30. So we offer nursery and pre-KK at both platforms.
And for us, I think it's just for everybody too, is just staffing. We
That's
bump up
right.
More staff.
Yes,
we'd
if
be
we
able to
had-
do it. Yeah.
Yes, if you had twice as many people on your theme explorations team, you would happily offer it at 9:30 and 11:30. So that's right. Like, the community does have the resources to solve this problem, and it just may not have the will to solve the problem, and that's actually fine, right? Like, it's okay for the community to make its decisions with its feet about what it wants to offer at platforms.
Much like climate change, except that one's not okay.
That is not okay. Correct. It is okay for us to have fewer classes. The world will not end.
Right, literally.
Literally, world will end.
Right, so I just counted all the kids we have in our planning spreadsheet,
Yeah.
and that's 90 kids.
Great.
Wow.
Yes. So
That they will never
they are not
be
all.
here.
They will never all be here on a Sunday, and they will never all register.
Right.
And there will always be new kids that are coming in. Yeah. So that's sort of thank you, Abby. That's really helpful. Okay, so I want to just walk us through the PowerPoint teacher training, which was created by Dana Edwards, who's was at the time a religious educator. She's now in seminary, which I've adapted, and actually Indara also helped to adapt last year. Over the summer. So here we go. So this training, as I mentioned, is set to be able to be self-paced. So it can be sent to people who are not here now, and they can take it on their time and then do the exit interview so that and some elements of it we are not going to explore fully today. So I do encourage you, particularly there's a great slide with information about different child development, like different models of child development, different ways of thinking about children and their development. We're not going to fully explore that today. I do encourage you to go back and take a look at it. So it invites us to center ourselves. I think actually this is really an important part of the training and of Seek. All through this training, you'll see the phrase, the congregation is the curriculum. That's a phrase from UU religious educator Sophia Lyon-Foss. And it means that as much as we worry about having the lesson plans perfect and the materials ready and an awesome craft and a great STEM project and all of those pieces, what is most important for our children is to know that they are in a place where there are adults who are not their parents, who care about them, who support them, who want to foster and nurture their growth. The whole congregation, not just the teachers on Sunday morning, not just the staff, the whole congregation is the curriculum that our children are learning. And so the how of Seek is equally as important, if not more so, as the what of Seek. You know what I mean? Like the how we show up and whether we come as centered as possible and wanting to support and nurture our children, it really makes a difference in the children's experience. So I love the idea of centering before a class. And of course, almost all or all of our classes have some centering in the class that invites our children and also our teachers to arrive, to light a candle or a flaming goblet, to do a go-round, to pass Peace Bear, whatever it might be. Okay. So an overview of our program for this year. Our nursery is professionally staffed with both literally adult professional caregivers and with teens from the community. There will not be 2 teens and no caregiver. So Indara is in charge of managing that staffing. And so if there's a teen, there's also a professional caregiver. There are always at least 2 folks. That's another place that can be a great pop-in for people that want to help out sort of as needed. I know Peter is like a regular nursery pop-in, you know, he just kind of shows up and then it's so cute because all the kids know him. It's adorable, actually. You get to really build these bonds.
It's a good pop-in also for older students, like middle school students who are without curriculum.
Absolutely. And we have at least one student who is like formally kind of signed up to be able to do that. She's, I think, a 5th grader, and she'll be helping out in nursery and or in pre-KK. It's a great way. It's great for their babysitting resumes. I mean, there's lots of good stuff about it both ways. Our pre-KK is using our rainbow curriculum, which we've used before. We have a couple of curriculum that we kind of choose between depending on the ages of the kids, etc. And as I said, Indara is our lead teacher, so that's the class that is always, beautifully run, and it's a huge help for our for kids of that age to have the consistency of the at least one same teacher each week. That is huge. Before Indara, actually, Pam was often that person, the consistent, caring preschool teacher for my preschoolers, in fact. And one reason why we have pre-K together is that our kindergartners frequently don't want to move into the next Sunday school class. So much is happening in their going to kindergarten in their regular lives that so this happened with Joanna. She wanted to stay with Miss Pam. There was a lot of new stuff, and so we have intentionally created that. Again, if that's not working for a kid, talk to us. Like, our desire is for the kids to be in the place that's right for them, but we do find that kindergartners like to often stay there. Our first through third, so these two are at both platforms. Our first through third is theme explorations. Steve and Rima are the co-leads of that, and they work with our monthly themes, and they're doing using story, using art, using science, using service projects, typically one of those per week.
And that's at
So-
9:30.
That's at 9:30, exactly. And you know what, I'll add the times onto this slide. I think that would be helpful for folks following at home. Our Harry Potter Social Justice is offered at 11:30 after significant parent communiques and polling. That's co-led by Emily and Shayla, and we used that curriculum last year with 5th and 6th, and our then 3rd and 4th graders really wanted to get into the program. They kept trying to like crash it, argue their way into the class, so I'm excited that is the group that gets to take it this year.
I think it's better for that age also.
Yeah, a little bit younger. I think that's right. Yeah, we put it at 5th and 6th. I think that's right. But we have a brand new 5th grader who is at the Path to Membership with her parents, and we were talking about what classes the kids would be in, and I said, well, we have a Harry Potter Social Justice one, and she's just like, yeah. Her sibling, unfortunately, is a 9:30 person, so that's one of those families that's trying to figure out, the split, but they had a whole plan. 6th is in Neighboring Faiths. You'll see that's our only class that is just 1 year, but it is actually, I think, large enough.
It's plenty big.
That's led by Abby and Katie. That particular year is also one of our more active groups of kids. So I think it's great. I think it's a great setup. They are at 9:30 in part to facilitate the field trips that they take. So our 7th and 8th is offered at 11:30. Laura Delaney and Chris Oswald co-lead that, and they actually have a great little team together of other teachers as well. And they are doing a mashup of popcorn theology and a curriculum called Heeding the Call, which is a social justice curriculum. So they're putting those together from some of the greatest hits from popcorn theology, but shaking it up a little bit. And then our 9th through 12th graders, our 9th graders and one 10th grader are in coming of age as well, but that meets not Sunday mornings. So on Sunday mornings at 11:30 every Sunday, we have programming for our 9th through 12th graders, led by Julie Grimes with a team of folks, and that their work is directed by the teens. I have heard that they've already decided they want to have once a month advocacy tables at West, so that
what a great idea.
that they'll run, that other people can come and sign up or write letters or whatever. So yeah, I feel like that will be not unpopular at West. So that's pretty cool. And some of our teens do choose to help out in nursery or in pre-K, and that's fine too, right? Like, just as with all our kids, we want our teens to find the place in the community that's right for them. If that's the programming we offer, awesome. If it's some other place in our community, equally awesome, as long as they know that there's a space for them here. Any questions on that program overview?
Well, one thing to add would be there's the OWL.
Yeah, I know, it didn't fit. Maybe I'll do a sidebar on there. Okay, so add times, sidebar on OWL. So yes, from January through March, the 4th through 5th graders will be in 4th to 5th OWL. And any 4th to 5th grader who doesn't want to do that will probably move into theme explorations for the 3-month period if there's a family that doesn't choose to do that. And then I don't have Seek Fun in here anymore either, so I'll sidebar that as well. Okay, thanks. Any other helpful edits or questions? Thanks, Emily, I appreciate that. So, it wasn't Sophia Lionfoss. No, not at all. The congregation is the curriculum. There we go. So how we are together is as important as the lessons that we are sharing.
Can I say something else about that too?
Please.
You might have already said it, but I think the wider congregation, but you already said this, the classroom itself is like, these relationships are the lesson.
Yes, totally. The relationships that kids build with each other. I often think too about even the multi-generational relationships that our kids build, which they don't have an opportunity to do at school in the same way. That's not how school is set up for those of us that engage in standard public school or most independent schools even. And and they develop those in coffee hour or doing winter festival or at the camping trip, and those are really I find that very precious. Yeah, thanks. So what happens on Sunday mornings? I do find this picture, these were Dana's pictures.
No.
We do not leave babies with toddlers for caretaking on Sunday mornings. But it's so cute. But there would definitely be adults also in this picture. So just some of the basics. The carts are back. And huge thanks to Indara who got them all set, prepped them, has materials in them. If there's something that you're missing in your cart, like Rima asked for the list of where all the classes were so she could be helpful to new people, just let us know. Indara will make sure that gets into your cart. So please arrive at least 15 minutes before class time. I would say this is most consistently the piece that doesn't happen and really makes a difference. And it partly makes a difference, partly it logistically makes a difference, right? Like, we're able to get everything prepped for you, etc. Partly it makes a difference in that congregation is the curriculum piece. Because if you're like, just getting there 2 minutes before class starts, even if you're able to assemble everything because the cart's ready and you brilliantly asked Indara to print the lesson 3 days earlier so she has it for you and everything is there, you're still coming in not as centered as you could be had you arrived 15 minutes earlier, gotten things prepped, and sort of been ready, like, in your soul, in your person to receive students. So I do think that's a super important one. It is very helpful. It's also helpful because new people especially often arrive early because they want to get it checked out, especially new people with children. And so it's challenging if we take them down and there's nobody in the classroom for them. That's tricky. So get the class cart from the West office. Everything will be on the cart for you. Bring it down to the classroom. Take attendance as students join. That attendance is super important. We had our first fire drill in June. We'll have another every June. It went great, and part of what the fire drill's success depends on is us knowing which children are in the building so that we can make sure that we have those same children when we are out of the building. So that's, attendance is great for us to know who's here and how we're doing and how, it gives us feedback on the program. But it is actually so that we are keeping our children safe. So that's super, super important. Indara has also added a new form along with the attendance for new families that asks for a little bit more information. Often our new families, because they come in with like 3 kids and where are they going, do not end up filling out that yellow welcome sheet. And so they have sometimes they've been coming for like 6 weeks and we have not ever captured their email. So that form that Indara has created allows us to do that in the classroom. Teach, lead, help, stimulate curiosity, have fun. 20 past
Amanda?
Yes.
You have a question about having fun? Sorry.
Possibly. I think something that's really important to add to that bullet is modeling ethical behavior and communication.
Into the teaching bullet.
Yes.
Here. Yes. I think we'll get more. This is sort of just the stand-in for the class happens because it's also logistical.
Okay.
But I love that, absolutely.
You're covering that somewhere.
I think we'll get more to it, but
Okay.
but
I just think
let's have it as many places as possible. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's a critical element of what we do.
Absolutely. That's the how, right? It's so vital. Yep.
That's the congregation is the curriculum.
And if you have to skip fun, you just skip fun. Although usually the fun and the ethical communication go.
Yes.
I'm thinking the teach lead are kind of there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, and I do hope we'll get into it more as we keep going, so please keep that in mind as you see the rest and tell me if what we're missing. So logistically, at 20 past the hour, wrap up the class. Make sure, particularly with your kids that have transition challenges, we all know that some kids are able to transition easily, and for some kids, transition is incredibly stressful, so make sure to give them lots of time. If they aren't done with a project, you can offer that they take the project home with a couple materials, like build in how you can help them, support them with that transition, so that by 25 past the hour, ish, you are upstairs in the lobby ready to join the adults in the main hall. Most weeks, one class will go up on stage in the main hall to present what they've learned. And in ideal situations, that'll have been worked out ahead of time. So like on Friday, I will have emailed with one of the teaching groups to say, do you think, like the first Sunday, I knew Harry Potter was making wands. I thought, but that'll be a great thing. They'll have a tangible thing to show people, so we set it up ahead of time. It turned out that at least at 9:30, the first and third class also wanted to share, so that's cool. Like we just had a super long sharing that Sunday. It was very
and
sweet.
the 9:30 Harry Potter kids didn't want to talk. So
Right, exactly. So they showed, that was fine. They showed their wands silently, and then the theme explorations did want to talk.
Very much so.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much
excited about
talking.
that.
So that's great. So we can be flexible, in the moment with that, but we do try to set it up ahead of time. After the class, please do share any pertinent details with SEEK staff, especially if you had behavior challenges. The best way to deal with those is for us to know about them early, so that we can help support them. And return the cart to the West office. Any questions just about those logistics pieces on a Sunday? Yes.
2 questions. One, with the cart, are we sharing carts with 2 classes?
Harry Potter is not, but
Okay.
Neighboring Faiths and Popcorn Theology are, because they're sharing the same room.
Great.
And they're at different.
And there are 2
yeah.
different times, yeah.
Okay. Second question, because Harry Potter is gonna be doing a bunch of drives of different kinds of materials,
Right.
could we make announcements that the
But there's a book drive, for example.
like we can not we could either have one kid do it or give the info to the
that
person.
is a great children's sharing opportunity.
Mhm.
For that, that's an ideal thing for the kids to share with the community the drive they're doing and why they're doing it. So I would just say communicate with me, like this week we're going to want to announce it. The one addition I would say is please also send an email so that we can get it into news and notes.
Right.
For any, because otherwise it was just the people in the room that will have heard it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder if, because we're going to do probably a lot, I wouldn't want to be every
Here's Harry
week.
Potter again.
Right. Or take away time for any other class.
Yeah.
So we may just have to figure out what's a better quick announcement and what's a actual share.
Yeah.
Moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Sabby?
The other thing about that is if Harry Potter's at 11:30 and the only time that they have an opportunity to share themselves is at the end of the 11:30 platform, it'd be better to share earlier in the day
Right.
as well, so the folks who come to 9:30 hear it.
Well, that's what I was saying about send me the email so that we
Yeah.
get it in news and notes and everything. Yeah, because otherwise,
Would it be possible to add it to the announcements at the end of platform?
yeah, if you give it
as
to
well?
me, yeah. Yeah, Steve.
Card question. Dara, when we're done with the 9:30 theme exploration, how would you like the cart? Would you like everything back on the cart? I think there's the 11:30 that comes in afterward. Using the same kind of things on the cart, is that?
I would want everything back because the 11:30 is a little bit different.
Okay.
And I'll come in and set that up.
You'll come in and set up the 11:30, but the 9:30 we need to put everything back on the cart. I
Yeah.
say because there's a tendency, I may or may not be guilty of this myself, of oh, thank God it's done. And let's run away. It's like you set all the dominoes up and you could feel them all fall down during the day and during the lesson, and then there's a rush out, and then there's let's go back down. And so what I want to communicate to folks is it's not done until we're back down there cleaning that back
Yeah.
up and putting it back
Right.
on the cart.
I was gonna say that bullet is missing is
Resetting
clean the
the
classroom,
room.
clean up the
Yeah.
classroom. I mean, hopefully
Yeah.
the kids are helping clean up the classroom, but
But if you don't have
can't
time.
really
That's right.
It's
No,
all
that's
go, go,
right.
go.
And when if the lessons run long and then you're trying to book it up to the main hall, clean up classroom
I
bullet.
just have one
Thank
more thing
you.
they have to do.
That's great. Perfect. Okay.
That's
Great.
always been a problem.
Okay. I'm gonna keep going.
voice of experience
Second.
right here.
So, safety, super important. There are first aid kits that look actually something like this in the copy room in the West office. So that's the room with the Xerox machine. And on top of the fire extinguisher down in the downstairs lobby that's outside the kitchen, right? In these kits, you should find Band-Aids and Neosporin and I think gloves. We should make sure about that. We should probably do a kit check, etc. Please let us know if there was an incident that required something, even if it was just a Band-Aid that you put on a boo-boo. Just please send a quick email afterward and say, here's what happened today, so that we're aware. Also, so that we're aware and we can restock kits appropriately, right? Like if we have 2 pairs of gloves and they both got used on a Sunday, then we need to make sure that there's more gloves. Treat all bodily fluids as if they carry an infectious disease. That's just sort of basic standard first aid. Every seat cart has emergency procedures on the side of it, which essentially boil down to exit the building as quickly as possible, going out the door in your classroom if possible, or here if you're here, you're going to go out either of the doors. The front door is closest. And then meet at the Lowell Field parking lot. So those of you who were there for the fire drill in June, we actually did this with our bodies so that we have like a body memory of where we're supposed to be going. It worked. We would probably do it more quickly in an actual emergency. It was kind of like a chatty saunter in June, and then we sauntered back to a cookie truck. But as we talked about in June, the parents do not go down to the classrooms to get their children. It is dangerous for parents to do that. If there were an emergency in the building, it just means that more people are moving in more directions in an unhelpful way. So the teachers are indeed responsible for getting the kids out. Yes,
I have a question.
Yeah.
For emergency procedures, I know that for fires, there's an alarm. What if there's some other type of emergency?
So, in general, our policy is that if there is an emergency, we'll pull the alarm.
Okay.
And there are alarm poles throughout the building. So, were there some, active shooter situation, we would pull.
So I've been doing active shooter training at work in a federal building.
Yes.
Their advice is not to pull the alarm for active shooter because that brings more people out into hallways where they're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. So here's the problem. We have 0 hiding spots. There is no hide in this building.
The kitchen, that's it. This kitchen and bathroom, that's it.
Yeah.
The
Which,
bathroom downstairs.
yes.
Yes.
Except that it doesn't, I don't think
It doesn't lock.
lock.
Yeah.
Oh.
So then, no.
No.
So,
Maybe we should think of a way to get a message around if there's...
right. So we have talked through like walkie-talkies, keeping a walkie-talkie up in the podium and walkie-talkies with people around.
It's tough.
It's really tough. And, it's sort of like, our kids go through these drills in schools and like, would they really,
Would they gain anything?
it's unclear.
Yeah.
But I think if the protocol when the alarm is pulled is to leave the building, right? We have the doors in the classrooms.
Right.
So you're not coming into the
That's 100% true.
Exactly.
Right,
So
you're
that's
leaving
why
the
for
building.
us, it's just,
Probably
if it's
better
pulled,
than-
you get out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
hall.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we do not have enough, it's
Shelter.
it's
so
not,
little
we
shelter.
cannot shelter in place
place.
effectively here. But we have many, many exits.
Another question.
Yeah.
So you did a fire drill. Do you do emergency evacuation drills, like active shooter drills?
No. So we decided we would do we did the alarm goes off and you leave the building drill. Since that's what you do for everything.
Yeah.
I will say if so we are supposed to meet at Lowell. If there were an active shooter, you actually should just go.
Scatter.
You should scatter. Yeah. At that point, you don't meet at your prescribed meeting place because it just creates another set of targets. So you scatter. You take your kids and you scatter, and then people find each other later. It is more important to scatter and get away and then into houses or into hiding, the likelihood of this is all very, very slim, right? I want to remind us that it's a huge problem in our country and it is still statistically exceedingly unlikely.
Much more dangerous to drive to work.
Much more dangerous to drive to work. Yes. Yep, absolutely. So, and obviously we still want to have good procedures, and we would want to have good procedures if there was a fire or if there was any other reason. So,
One last
yes.
question.
Yes, thank you so much,
I'm
Indara.
thinking
No, that's
about
awesome.
Our drills that we have at work.
Yeah.
Is there a meeting place? Indoors.
We
Like in
do
the
not
winter,
have an indoor
if
meeting
it's cold.
place. No.
We've done neighboring businesses, family homes that are nearby.
Yeah.
I know you can't fill up all of West in someone's home, but if we're getting out of the building and there's infants and it's cold,
Right, totally.
we need to be somewhere.
No,
indoors.
we only have Lowell Field.
Okay.
Lowell and Shepherd Elementary are the obvious ones.
Yeah, but they aren't open on Sunday.
Yeah.
And actually, neither are the synagogues. That's the problem. Like all the big institutions around us, and we don't have businesses around us.
Maybe one of the churches. There's a church that's like a block up. I happen to be learning about this in my neighboring faith
I've never
class.
seen anybody go into that church.
No, me neither. It's like
I don't
dead.
think it's. I think it's.
Church.
Which one?
It's a block up on the other side of the
16th.
16th. Yeah.
Somebody invited me into it as we were walking by one day.
Oh, Steve
I
isn't
should
in.
have gone on.
Well, we're going to be walking around and
Yeah.
We're doing a walking field trip
Yeah.
tomorrow
Little
Right.
neighborhood
Okay.
inventory.
of the neighborhood.
I know.
neighboring
Actually, I was.
faiths in
I
our
was
neighborhood.
wondering if you
that's
guys
a
would
good
be the
idea.
sharers tomorrow.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Is it, let's check it. Tom, I think Tom leads the safety committee.
He
is that
does.
right? Is this conversation a part of that committee? Is
Yes.
it- okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the yeah.
So what are we, before June, what are we communicating to parents and when, in terms of, especially for, I feel like there's a lot of new parents.
Yeah.
And I still feel like we haven't gotten to that practice of, on the kids' first Sunday, the parent brings them to the class, to the teacher, to make sure that there's like a name face recognition. I know that, especially thinking in terms of the stream cleanup coming up,
Right.
the last stream cleanup that I did, I ended up freaking out a mom accidentally because we came back a little later than we were expected
Yeah.
to, and unfortunately communication did not get to each other.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah. So maybe a reminder in the Seek newsletter every once in a while about our evacuation procedures, and about like a reminder that especially if you're newer here, please connect with your child's teacher as you drop them off. Is that
Another question: will there be a drill soon?
so we've only ever had one drill, and it was June, and our plan at that time, just on staff, was to have it yearly in June.
I've been here 20 years. It's the only drill I've ever done.
Right. It is literally the only drill that's ever happened, I believe.
I think there was another one.
It wasn't a drill though.
We had a
Had
fire
an
alarm go
actual
off the
fire
middle of the
alarm go
platform.
Oh, okay.
Because the waffles like set off the fire alarm.
Fun.
And do you remember, like, everybody sat in platform. They were like, what do you think is it? The waffles? Probably the waffles. I bet it's the waffles. And finally, Renee Tatusco was an usher that day before she moved to Alaska, and Renee was like, "Get out of the building!" and people were like, "Oh right, yes, it's a fire alarm. Oh, you should. Even if we think it's the waffles, we should leave the building." So yeah, that was like not our shining moment of evacuation procedures. Yep. So we were not planning a drill earlier. Now, the Seek classrooms we could do it's harder to do with the adults and everything.
Right.
But the classrooms could choose a day
Okay.
to do that.
Good idea.
Or even, it doesn't even have to all be the same day, though that's sort of fun maybe for the kids. But it could be that just in the fall, everybody like think about a Sunday when you would like to take your classes, walk them to Lowell Field, talk about
just
that's
talk
what we do.
about it.
If
And
there's a
Everyone-
fire alarm,
everyone
here's what we do.
sets- Everyone sets their alarm on their phone
Yeah.
for 11:23
Yeah.
or whatever
Should
time.
we plan that for
Yeah,
for
I
the
think it
seat
should be all
classes
classes at one time, so we'll know
Okay.
it. So it's like
I
walking
think
down
that would be a good
together.
idea.
Great.
Also, Rima asked for me to make a list of contacts of parents, so I've started to make
Okay.
emergency contact lists that
Oh,
we can take with us. in case we have to
fantastic.
leave the building.
Wonderful.
Since we'll have our cell phones.
Yes. Great. Thank you so much.
Super
You
helpful.
talking about drill, you're talking about in response to like a fire alarm, is it?
Fire alarm, emergency evacuation,
emergency
or
evacuation.
like
Yeah.
a gas leak. Yeah.
Since it's all the same.
Could
Yeah.
we do that on October 13th, wherein we have the stream cleanup? So like,
I'm worried it will not
take
stand
too
out
long.
in their minds too,
Oh.
Because
right?
they're
Like
thinking
if they're
it's
like,
like a
oh, we just
visit.
walked to the stream cleanup that day. I didn't really like.
okay.
I mean, half the time,
Understand when
only a
everybody's
third of
in
them
the
are
building.
listening to what you just said. So
Okay.
I think maybe a separate day. Okay, we can. Well, I will talk with the SEEK team and the leads of the classes, and we'll choose a day and do that. I think that's an awesome idea. Thank you so much. Okay.
Can I say
Um,
one more thing about
yes,
emergencies?
absolutely.
I'm so sorry that I
Wait,
keep
actually,
doing
I
this.
didn't even want to go. Okay.
So this is, we won't have time to pull a fire alarm, so it'll be okay, but we all know, right, if there's an earthquake, what you do is different.
Yep.
That is very
You,
No,
you
we
go
don't
in
have
a
drills for
doorway.
those.
No.
You grab
Go
onto
on
the
a
bottom,
table.
a table
Underneath
leg,
a solid
yeah.
object, this is
Okay,
not
something
perfect, but
falls.
better than nothing, and hold on to the object.
You don't run outside?
You
Okay.
do not run outside.
No, parts of the building would fall on you.
And the problem is it generally happens really fast.
Right.
By the time you know it's happening,
Right.
you already have to be in a protected location.
Okay.
Not like the one time I've been in an earthquake where I was running a webinar and I was like, let's just keep going. What could happen?
Yeah, there was one a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't know what it was
No,
because
we all
we were
ran
on
out the
Yeah.
door.
Right, because it
Um,
never happens
a
here.
dock
Right,
with trash
I know,
cans,
we're
and we
so-
thought it was like the trash truck coming to get
Oh,
the trash. We were
totally,
like,
right,
Wow, it's
like-
really shaky today. And then we saw people outside, and we knew it was an earthquake. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So under, the truth is our kids probably know that.
They probably do.
Yeah.
They will be our teachers. I want to just go over a couple other of our safety measures so that we're all aware. Our standard is to have 2 unrelated to each other adults in a room. So in a classroom, there should be 2 unrelated adults. And that, yes, and Dara. No, thank
It's a
you.
little tricky for the restroom where
Yes.
there's like 1 or 2 who needs to go and the whole class doesn't want to go.
I know.
So what I've done is take them into the nursery bathroom because there's already people there, so I'm
Yep.
not alone.
Yep.
But I know that may not work for other classrooms.
Yes, yeah, I think that's great for pre-KK. I think that in the older classes, kids either should be able to not go to the bathroom for the 45 minutes of the class. Like if there's someone frequently needing to go to the bathroom and there's not a medical reason for that, like we should have a conversation with that kid and just be like, you gotta go before class, you can't go in class. Like just,
Okay.
that's just, they're not 2-year-olds or 4-year-olds, like they can, obviously if there is some medical reason, then we figure that out, but, so yes, but yeah, I agree that is a tricky element, and I think that's the perfect solution for our younger kids who can't,
Yeah.
always hold it. But so that's our policy. If you have any concerns about child abuse or neglect, something that a child says, something that you observe, please speak with me. So now, and here's the funny thing about DC. Every teacher, whether they are a staff member or a volunteer, is a mandated reporter. If you suspect child abuse or neglect, you are a mandate, and you are working with our children, you are mandated reporters legally in DC.
So that means we are legally required to say something.
Yes, and probably you are legally required to, now, you are welcome, like please come to me and I will support you in that process. I am actually not a mandated reporter. DC is one of very few jurisdictions where clergy are not mandated reporters. The Attorney General is actually trying to change that. I support that change. I think clergy should be mandated reporters. I think that religious organizations have not proven their trustworthiness with clergy and children. However, at this time, I am not a mandated reporter. So I would work, I can still report, I'm just not mandated to report. So come talk to me and we will work together. But if you see it and suspect it, whether or not in some scenario where I would be like, oh no, never mind, it's fine, I guess, or something, you're mandated to report it. And I think to CPS. Child Protective.
911 or something?
Yeah, so you can start there, or you can call DC Child Protective
Yeah, there's a form.
Services. Yeah. I think the thing, my mom's a social worker, works a ton with Child Protective, and what she's really helped me to understand is that reporting is just beginning a process of helping the family figure out what's needed. And it may be that somebody comes in after a report and says, things are fine. A kid made a comment that, was just a kid making a comment and everything is fine. Nothing bad is going to happen to that family. If CPS comes in and determines that further support is needed,
They do it.
further support is needed, and they'll figure that out. So I think sometimes people are hesitant to report because they're worried like the kids will be taken away. What will happen is CPS will come in and evaluate if there's a need for any concern, and they are qualified to make that evaluation, and we are not qualified, most of us, to
And
make that
families
evaluation.
won't know that you reported too.
Right, you can report anonymously, etc. Sometimes part of figuring it out is actually working with the family to report with them. So sometimes if the family reports, that can actually be ideal, right? So it's case by case, but yes, you absolutely are anonymous reports possible. But I think it's important for you to know legally you are mandated reporters. WES requires all of our paid teachers and childcare workers to take CPR and first aid training. Some of our newer folks, our teens who are newly on staff, haven't gotten that training yet, but like Linda and Fatima and Indara and Elena and Brian all are CPR first aid certified. So that means that any given Sunday we have several people who are CPR first aid certified down with our kids. Plus, of course, we have nurses and PAs and doctors often upstairs. But WES runs the name of all of our volunteer teachers through the sex offender registry. We do actually more significant background checks on our paid staff. So they go through a different, more extensive process. And I have background check authorization forms here. So if Tom and I were just talking, and I think we will probably do like a 2-year loop for people. So if you know that you filled this out and were run through last year, that's fine. If you don't think you were, please take a form, sign it, give it back to us, and we'll run it through. And then we will talk with you if something comes back that we have a question or concern about. I actually have, I could have a long conversation about my mixed feelings about the sex offender registry, but we don't have time for that right now. But it's just to say that for us, background checks are an entry into conversation. And so that's sort of how we approach it. Yes.
Do you have a list of people who have already been through?
Tom has that list. Yeah,
Okay, so
I can
if
check
I
it.
fill it out and he'll say, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're
Yeah,
In other words, it doesn't hurt to fill out the form.
that's correct.
Yeah.
If you if you aren't sure or whatever, yes, please fill out a form. It's helpful to us,
Okay.
and we'll send those out to teachers as well. And so
Can we do that while you're talking?
yeah, totally. Yeah, they're right here. Kate can send them around. That'll be awesome. And then again, all teachers, volunteer paid, are mandated reporters. Okay, here we go. The things the child sees are not just remembered, they form a part of their soul. This is actually not a religious educator. Maria Montessori was a preschool educator and the creator of the Montessori program, but really had that sense of, again, the congregation is the curriculum. So here's where we are not going to go through each one of these right now, and I do encourage you, unless you happen to have a master's in early childhood education, Indara, to please take a moment to look at these core concepts, kind of some of the different ideas of both faith development, when are children able to grasp only what am I trying to say? Concrete, yes, thank you. Concrete ideas versus abstract ideas, that comes up in the faith development. When are they really ready to start thinking broadly about what other people believe versus needing kind of, here's what our family thinks, right? Those are different times in faith development in children's lives. How children engage with and explore gender identity, which actually is changing in part because of the society around us, sort of timing on that, etc. So some super great information there for you to take a look at. And then just another, like, some visuals of some of what was talked about in the last slide. So Fowler's different stages of faith that most people go through over their lifetimes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sort of what are people able to work on. The idea here is that you have to get this need met before you can start thinking about this need, before you can think about this need, etc. So that can help us, particularly if we have a kid that doesn't seem to really be able to engage in the curriculum. It's helpful, it can be helpful to look here and see, is there something lower down on the hierarchy of needs that they're missing that I can help to provide in the classroom? Are they feeling, unsafe, or etc.? And then the multiple intelligences. So there's actually some interesting sort of research out there about whether that's really a thing, like a different kind of intelligence. What I would say is, like, the specific sort of science of it aside, we do know, and we know from our own selves, that some of us engage more easily when we're moving, some of us engage more easily when we're hearing something, etc. So I think that's still a helpful and interesting way to look at how people engage with thinking and learning. Any questions on any of that? This is a lovely poem from Octavia Butler, which I encourage you to read, and I encourage you to read the book. And I encourage you to join the I Believe Information Sci-Fi Book Club, which I think might be starting with this book. Our behavioral policies. So this was created last year by popular demand. Teachers really wanted to have a way they wanted clarity about how they were supposed to respond when a student was having trouble engaging in class, and when that trouble was disruptive for the class, right? It's fine if a child is not engaging in class and they are quietly, non-disruptively doing whatever it is else, that's totally fine. Congregation is the curriculum. Like, we want that child to know they are welcome in the class, even if they're not engaging fully. It's not a problem. You don't have to, certainly invite them in. You don't have to worry about that child. The child that is behaving in such a way that the rest of the class is disruptive, obviously is a challenge. And so we have several clear steps for what to do with those kids. Those steps are in the SEEK registration. So parents are familiar, or should be familiar, with these steps. First, communicate clearly the behavior that needs to change. Say positively the behavior you want to see, right? So please stop jumping up and down, Kate. I'd like you to be able to sit, or could you sit on the floor, right? You might, maybe Kate doesn't like a chair, but we can figure out something that Kate would like. If there's no change, Kate's still jumping up and down, I would guide Kate to the side of the room and try to engage with her quietly, right? Like, hey, Kate, seems like you're having a hard time. I might engage with her on something totally unrelated in an attempt to get Kate just unstuck from her behavior. So, I wanted to know about school this year. Like, who's your teacher, right? So I'm just trying to get Kate unstuck. Ideally, Kate re-enters.
It's one of those moments when it's really critical to have two teachers.
Bingo,
Yeah.
Exactly. You cannot do that if you're the only teacher.
Right.
If there's still no change, you might guide the child, Kate, please, let's go outside for a minute. And now I'm going to really pull into my, toolbox of things to get Kate unstuck. We're going to do jumping jacks together. We're going to run as fast as we can up and down the hall. We're going to take 5 breaths slowly, whatever it is that I think might help this particular child get unstuck from the behavior. Be creative. There's this awesome, I saw one of my colleagues built a calming maze in the hallway of their RE wing. which each one had, it was like you went here and you put it was like a sensory thing. You put your feet in the feet places, and then the next one asked you to jump once, and so that the child going through this maze by the end has engaged their body and reached like a calming space. It was amazing. So I want that.
If we had anybody wanted to take it on, the downstairs lobby would be perfect.
Oh, totally. That'd be so
Or
cool
even just
there.
to have a,
Labyrinth.
Yeah, a labyrinth. Yeah.
For kids, it's better to have, well, you know.
Yeah, like an activity that's what it would, right? Yeah. If you are unable to get the child to engage non-disruptively in the class, you go find the parent in the main hall. I think one of the big takeaways last year when we created this policy was that parents of children who were disruptive wished they had been contacted more by the kids' teachers. They wanted to be found in the main hall if their child was being disruptive. They wanted a follow-up from the teacher later if the child kind of settled but was really a pain in the neck in class. Like parents desired to hear from the teachers so that they could be a support to the teacher and the child for better engagement. So like, don't hesitate. If your class is not able to function because a child is disruptive, go find that child's parents. You don't know what's going on, right? Like, maybe it was a really rough day, and connect them.
I have a question for professional teachers, experienced
Yes,
people in the room, more experienced than me. There are some kids who, I've had the discussion with the parents about typical behaviors and what we might do to, some kids have more trouble than others, what we might do to support that child. And I also try to make a point of, if that particular child had a great day in the classroom, of finding the parent, if possible, with the child right there, and saying that as well. But what's interesting is parents sometimes push back.
Like, they don't take the compliment well?
Yeah, as if it's damning with faint praise, or like, oh, well, I'm glad to hear this week was better, or, and I just feel like you are doing your child no good at all. And wondering if maybe it's better to just skip it if the parent tends to do that.
Right.
Anybody
I would
have
just
a
keep
thought?
doing it.
Yeah.
I would keep doing it. I mean, at some point, they're going to realize, like, it's gotten better.
Yeah. Okay.
And I
Thank you.
think the kid needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, a kid that doesn't participate, isn't necessarily disruptive, totally fine. And then just some tips. Focus on the positive, praise the folks that are doing the right thing in the class, make sure people see what is it that you're looking for in engagement. Thanks so much, Emily, for, I love the way you
Raised your hand.
raised your hand. That was awesome. Unlike Kate over here.
La, la, la.
Relationships are key. Having a good relationship will help with good behavior. So that's one reason why having the consistency of teachers in the classroom is such an important thing for our kids. Are the needs met? Carts include fidget toys. Some carts include fidget toys. If you need fidget toys, tell us.
Yes.
We'll get you more fidget toys.
I'd like to vote for quiet fidget toys. Like, that particular fidget toy, is fantastic as it is, tends to scrape on the table.
Yeah. Sometimes we actually put in pipe cleaners or yarn. Both of those can be fidget toys. You can finger knit with yarn. You can turn, and they are silent, which is an ideal situation with a fidget toy. I know, I agree with you. It's like the fidget spinners are literally the worst things on earth, right? Like, I mean, they're fine, but they're not fidget toys. And then go back to that Maslow's hierarchy, as we talked about before, right? Like, is there something that child is not getting a need met that we could be able to help with or
Does
support?
Maslow's hierarchy show up differently? Like, I feel like, up to third grade, you can just look at the child and know what's going on.
Right.
But I feel like when you get to middle school, it's like, suddenly it's a mystery. Does it show up differently for older kids? Anybody?
I have no experience with
I don't, I
kids
mean,
that much.
so interestingly, like,
I'll
a lot
ask
of
Kate if she'll
Maslow's
know.
hierarchy, like, our children are not necessarily worried about their employment, though they might be worried about their security of their body and their family, etc. I suspect that at different times of a child's development, they have more trouble getting these needs met. So like love and belonging is a huge, like belonging especially as we know is a huge element of middle school, right? Like finding a place in a peer group, feeling connected in a peer group. Your belonging, your core belonging is switching from your family to friends to peer group. That's a huge shift in a child's life and in a parent's life as well. And so that's how I would respond to that. I don't know if that is accurate or not, but you know, it's sort of like different places are going to be more present for kids at different stages of development. Does that make sense to people who actually know more than I do about children's development? And Tara's like, that's why I hang out with preschoolers.
You're looking for you know what's going on.
I'm in a school with middle schoolers and I don't understand them at all.
Yeah, it is a real, I mean, middle schoolers are just, there's a lot that is happening for them.
They are so interesting and surprising all the time.
So, yeah, amazing. And then communicate expectations. So again, if you asked positively for the behavior you want, kids are not mind readers. They don't know what you are looking for. We do not look like their classroom at school, where they do know what is expected of them, but we also don't look like a hangout at a friend's house where they also know what, you know, so we are like a weird in-between place. Make sure that kids know. And then positively is helpful. So instead of don't put your feet on the table, please put your feet on the floor, etc.
On that note,
Yeah.
So when there are times when a student doesn't want to attend a class or doesn't like the activity, and I know that there are times where I've heard like parents mention your options are be in the platform with me
Correct.
or be in the class
Yes.
with your age group.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know whether like the parents' decision overrides the Wes, or if Wes has a thing.
Or if the
Like-
kids are also wandering the halls. That's
Yes.
Right, like,
so
do they know
what is
that's
not
really
available to children at Wes is wandering the halls
Right.
during platform.
Is there an age where that changes? 15, 16?
I don't have a policy answer on that. I don't think I would want any youth wandering the halls.
Okay.
What about just hanging out by themselves or in the social hall?
At a certain point, I think
Yeah.
like sitting with a book,
But their parent needs to know where they are.
absolutely.
Some adult,
Yes.
preferably
Yes.
a parent,
Yes.
needs to
I
know
mean,
where they are.
I would say that any child or youth of any age is either, like, the parent should know at any time where they are.
Yeah.
They're either in their age appropriate or whatever classroom has been determined for them for that time, or they're with the parent in platform listening or reading a book or whatever. Or yes, like I do think there are some kids that the parent can prearrange that you're going to be in the social hall with a book. I know exactly where you are. That's where you're going to stay. Not all kids can do that. Not all 16-year-olds can do that, right? So that's why I think the age is like a little.
Well, but that's one of my like kind of concerns is like, so I see a kid in the social hall, even if I mean like I don't want to bother a kid who has a book because I trust
Who is
that,
not
Yeah.
being
But-
disruptive. who-
right? But at the same time, like, so I'll be super specific. Jess had a book outside that first day
Yeah.
when we did the scavenger hunt thing, and I trust her. But later on, other kids were walking around. She was not reading her book,
Right.
and she
Right.
was out, and I didn't know what her parents had told her.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that
And
moment
that's
of
the
like,
tricky part.
Right.
am I supposed to do something?
Right. I think the first thing I would do, and I have done this, is to say to the kid, hey, does your parent know where you are?
Yeah.
And they could lie to you, obviously, but I
Yeah.
think chances are they also may say, oh, like I've had children say no, and I've said you need to go and locate your parent and like come up with a plan with them, you know? So that's at least the first step. Yeah, it's a little bit of a, you know,
Gray.
a gray area. Yeah, we could I mean, it's something for the SEEK team to think about. I think we could create a policy that says, nope, sorry, if you're under 18, you are either in the main hall or you're in a classroom, period. I don't know if that's the right policy or not, you know, but
The
because it's
scavenger
not
hunt was
currently
a
exists.
particularly difficult one.
That was a
because
little-
kids
yeah, it was
were
a little bonkers.
running all over the building.
Yes, Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
normally we would know who is at least supposed to be in each class. Like we would know our students.
That's correct.
You know, and if it's a guest, well, you know, they wouldn't be necessarily by themselves, but we would know who was our students.
Right.
Normally.
That's right.
So.
Yeah. Another thing, just somewhat related, is the name tags are now on your carts. So our experience was that kids were not going over to the centralized name tag location.
It was also
So-
too hard to find them.
Right. It was,
Mhm.
yes,
There were
a
too
challenge.
Of them, yeah.
So we'll remove that
Mhm.
twirly thing. And they are on the carts where the children belong. So hopefully, I do think it's really helpful for kids to wear them, particularly with newcomers. That's who it's for, really, right? Is it's for the new kid who doesn't know the other kids.
Yeah.
And you should also have blank, like stick-on name tags in the carts, so that the new kids can make a name tag.
So will the new kids only get an official name tag once they're registered, or do we have to ask for one?
We generally, if they so as teachers, you can help us with this. If you've had a kid a couple of times in your class, you can say to the parent, "Hey, I see that Mike's been coming back. Have you registered Mike yet? If not, could you make sure to do that? That really helps us out, and then we'll get a name tag made." If you have a kid and they don't end up getting registered, but they're regularly in your class, please just let us know and we'll make a name tag for them. Like, it's not like they have to buy the name tag through their registration.
And
We
could
would
just make
rather.
the name tag ourselves if there's a couple extra of those orange ropes, you know.
Well, we have a template, so we print them out.
Okay.
So it is nice for them to, feel like
Printed
they
name
are
tag.
just as much part of our community as everybody else. Kids really notice. They notice if they don't have the name tag.
Yeah.
They, we get feedback from children about the name tag being missing, or nobody ever made it for me, or whatever. So, so just let us know. Easy to do. This whole slide has to be changed. Sorry, I went through and updated it, but I did not update this. Shortly, this will have links to all the different Trello boards, so that teachers can take a look at them, and also a link to that behavioral practices agreement and registration. So we'll make sure that we get that all set. Another inspiring and beautiful quote. And then just some important dates. We already had the first day of classes. Give yourselves a round of applause!
Everybody like to tell.
Woo! November 24th is Stone Soup Sunday. It is so late this year because Thanksgiving is literally the latest it could possibly be. So that's just going to feel weird. We're all going to think it should be November 17th, but it is in fact not. It's the Sunday before Thanksgiving, so just be aware. And then December 8th is Winter Festival. So that's going to feel real quick after
that's
Stone Soup.
close.
Here we go. So
Festival so early.
it was December 9th last year.
Yeah, it's usually.
I always
Yeah.
think of it as a team.
We every year look at those two Sundays and make a call between them, and there's arguments for both. People generally have enjoyed having Winter Festival. The people who are in it have enjoyed having it over earlier before Christmas, because then you can sort of shift and go to the Nutcracker, or go, like one of the challenges for families that are in Winter Festivals, there's all these other Christmas related, it's not Christmas, it's like the holiday related stuff. And if Winter Festival is on the 15th, then you can't go to Revels at all because you're in rehearsal, or you're, that kind of thing. So there are pluses and minuses to both. I will be sending, if folks have questions about Winter Festival, I'll be sending an email to the whole community probably next week. Just checking to see, is there I wish I could direct Winter Festival person in the community. I anticipate that if there were, they would already have spoken with me, but it's always good to ask. And then, assuming that there is not such a person who comes forward and says, yes, my whole life is yearning for this role this year. Some of our folks, like Julie, is unable to direct this year, Marty's unable. So I think we are actually looking at going out into the theater community around DC. Many of our families have connections in that community, as do I. and bringing someone in to direct Winter Festival this year. I think it will be an awesome opportunity for our kids to work with a theater person to put together, and our adults as well, to put together that that particular thing. And we would use one of our scripts, so in our traditions, etc.
Just an FYI.
Yeah.
As I've been doing my decluttering and cleaning this last month or two,
Yes.
I found a script
Oh.
of one of the winter festivals that Jack was in, and I know you have some.
Oh, bring it
on,
to me.
but I know you also like to read, and I was like, oh, here's this one, and it's a while ago. There's
Yeah.
the Grumpy Old Man
Oh,
one.
awesome.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'd love to have it.
No,
Yeah.
it's sitting there.
Because some of those we
well-
don't have electronically,
Right. Well, that's
so,
what I was
mhm.
thinking when I found it. I was,
Yep.
It's
Yep. Back before the cloud, like that stuff is not
Right.
always easy to.
right, and this is probably
Yeah.
pre-cloud.
Yes. So,
Okay.
yeah. So we have a couple of potential ones that that we might return to, so that we would, it would be ours still, but that we would bring in somebody to help facilitate that. I think could be super fun and cool for our children and adults to work with. So, just a preview of Winter Festival plans. And then this is just again, sort of really about you and how you show up in your own life, in your teaching. Some great ideas about slowing down. My favorite is the first. It's actually something similar was in a book I read recently about ministry and busyness, and it had a challenge that when people say, "How are you? How are things going?" that you not respond with the word busy, which is literally always how I respond, right? But that you reframe your response to, and in this case they suggest, sort of listing things you're grateful for in your life.
Great, I'm grateful.
I'm great, right? Yeah. Or like if it's, I'm not great, right? Like sometimes we're great, sometimes we're not great. I don't think we want to. But often our default, especially in the DC area, is, oh, I'm busy. I'm so busy, and that those things are true. And how we talk about ourselves actually does shape our experience of ourselves. So,
I have a philosophical question about that.
Oh.
I mean, I can let go of the busy,
Yeah.
whatever, because you can always say, a little overwhelmed, or
Yeah.
there are other things you can say that speak more to your emotional state.
that's right. Yeah.
But there's the problem with great is that it usually doesn't feel authentic.
Right.
And I would choose authenticity over positivity
Yes.
personally.
I would agree with you as well. Yeah.
But I like the reframing it as, well, I'm grateful for the following things, because even when I'm feeling terrible, actually, there's usually something I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when people say, how are you doing, it's not shitty, actually. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really sometimes it's not really a real question. It's
Right.
just conversation.
That's
So-
true.
so-
That's true. I think, don't worry too much about the specifics here, but I think the general invitation is to reframe from, we can get into competitive busyness. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced that, but oh, I'm even busier, no, I'm the busiest of all.
I've got 14 more things
Right,
than you.
exactly.
Let me list them for you.
And I know I totally can get stuck in that. It feels very familiar to me. So, as much as possible to exit that space of competitive busyness and enter into a space of gratitude or authenticity or connection, real connection, right? In our lives. Also, maybe do fewer things if possible. Would help with that. And so then, again, if you are doing this on your own laptop, this is our exit quiz, which lets us know that you have taken the training. But you've all taken the training, so you are not required to do the exit quiz. The exit quiz says things like, it's like multiple choice. So, if a child is behaving badly, what should you do? A, follow a 3-step process, which ends with the contacting the parent,
B, spank
B,
them,
right,
sadly.
spank them. Do not choose B. So that's our exit quiz, and thank you so much. That is the end of that training.
So in general, do we ask teachers to do the quiz annually?
Yes. Yeah, because the quiz, there's like 5 questions, the quiz is not a time consuming part. And we do change like where the first aid kits are or whatever. So we want to make sure that teachers put their eyes on that. I'm going to make all of the important and fabulous adjustments to that you have suggested. And then I have a question for you. So we're videotaping this whole session, but it's going to be like a bazillion hours long. Who's going to watch this? That seems totally bonkers to me. We can, although if you are still watching, we're so glad you are. And
not questioning
that's
your mental health at
fantastic. We hope that maybe you are preparing dinner at the same time and enjoying this experience with us. So we can send it out just like this as a standalone PowerPoint that you send. Again, I do think you will get better. We will get better compliance if, Abby is asking her teaching team to fill this out, right?
Bad example.
Rather than me asking all the teachers to fill it out, right? I also could do what I did with like the budget slides or something last year, where I created a Zoom video of me walking through the PowerPoint for people. So it was a little shorter than what I just did, I because there won't be questions and etc. But like I narrate the PowerPoint as I go through it. And so I'm happy to do that. It's not a heavy lift.
You could just say, we could put a comment on this video and say, the PowerPoint is from this time to this time.
That's true. They could just watch it here. Yep. Yes.
I was going to say something similar, which was to take out the PowerPoint section. The problem was we all asked really good questions during the PowerPoint section.
Yeah.
Maybe just throw in a couple slides where there were a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Because most of the PowerPoint speaks pretty well for itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It also needs changes. So I don't necessarily want this version of having presented it to be the exact, because I think we did identify some things that I either literally overlooked or simply like we wanted more of,
Plus, they need to click on the links too.
Yeah, exactly. I want them to have it. So
I don't think you need to
create another.
you don't think
another
this
thing.
one needs? Okay, good.
I think
Perfect.
I think the PowerPoint speaks pretty well for itself, and it might make sense to just in this video skip that entire part, take it out,
Yeah.
and then grab a little pieces where it feels
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah. Or I can always answer questions too. Great. Okay. We definitely had, I now have a section for us to talk about classroom management techniques, and in particular to take advantage of the folks in this room who have incredible experience in classroom management professionally. And I feel like we actually had some of that conversation as we were going through the PowerPoint. So I just want to make sure, are there any other specific questions that we have around classroom management?
I have a request.
Great.
I am somewhat aided in this by the fact that I am, in fact, co-teaching with a professional teacher for middle schoolers.
That is handy.
It's so great. I am very grateful for that. But
Recruit professional teachers too.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe it's just because I've already gone through them. I feel like I have a little bit of a handle on the elementary years,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they're easier.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
you get to the middle school years, like last year in Harry Potter. I feel like we could all have used a little more education about how to classroom
Yeah.
management for middle schoolers.
Interesting.
Because you can't teach them like treat them like elementary school students.
Right.
The things you did don't work, and you also can't treat them like adults, which also doesn't work.
Right. Right. That's right.
So, because an adult, you just say, okay, if you're going to be like that, I'm walking away, and actually, that's not a good idea. Like,
No,
you cannot
please
that.
do not just exit your class, because the people are.
And we will have a fire drill.
Just to be clear. So
So I feel like a focused session on classroom management with middle schoolers might be
Great.
super helpful.
Awesome.
Maybe something the consultant would be willing to do on a Zoom call or something.
Absolutely. So I will do a couple. That is very helpful. I will do a couple of things. I will look for whether there's any quick resources I can find to just send out now. Like here's a link to like a great thing on middle school. I have a
TED Talk.
right, exactly, like a 20-minute or a thing you read online or whatever. I will look for those resources right now. I think that's absolutely the kind of thing that a remote consultant could do. and because I do think it's different for sure. And the only thing that I would suggest, just from my own knowledge and experience, is the more you can engage the middle schoolers in creating the curriculum and taking charge themselves of it, the better. So like with Neighboring Faiths, I would be tempted for some of the lessons to have a laptop there and some resources and have them do the resources to, like, exactly, like they spend the hour, you have a chart and they have to go fill in the chart. What does Judaism believe? What does Judaism practice? What they are super adept at being able to do that, as you know. And that can be a helpful kind of modality to engage, rather than I'm bringing all of the information to you and telling it to you, even when I have an exercise where I'm hoping to engage you with it, you know?
Yes.
Create a Jeopardy game.
I love it. I love the Jeopardy game idea, because the problem is if you say research this and give them a laptop.
Yeah.
It's too much like school.
No, not that. They're going to be doing 100 other things on the laptop.
Right.
You know, I don't know. I just did this with my girls. So my Girl Scouts have turned into cadets now, and I have transitioned from being a leader to an advisor, according to Girl Scouts USA. So I had them use 2 laptops to research the activities that they wanted to do for the year. And you know, like, yes, Marcella also made Bitmojis. It was like a 2-hour period, so, you know. And they primarily researched the activities they wanted to do for the year. So, like, there's, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It might work. You could try it. Yeah. Yep.
But something more structured like Jeopardy, where there's like a competition on time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Divide them up.
Keep
And
them more.
yeah, that's a great idea. So, but I will look for those resources, Abby.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other classroom management questions?
I don't know how to phrase this, but I wonder if there's also resources out there about sort of handling kids' moodiness / gothic-y, grungy.
What to do with our emo kids?
Yeah, because I feel like I kind of find it cute and funny when they're still under 11. You know, they're just kind of testing boundaries and playing around with attention and seeking and stuff. But I also, like, you know, don't want to be not taking them seriously or like be pushing them. I mean, I'm not a fan of super perky people, especially in the morning. So, like, I would never want to push someone out of their comfort, but I'm also kind of like, you know, you sort of have to ignore it a little bit so that they're not absorbing all of the attention in the class, and that those kids who are not like that are not feeling awkward about it.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, because especially with Harry Potter, I feel like there is a whole dark arts thing. There is death. Like, there is, you know, times where it makes sense, but I also, like, don't want the class to feel split between, like, positive and negative vibes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think the first question is always like, is this disruptive?
Right.
And if it's not disruptive, then I think
You
you
Let
can
them
ignore
go, let
it,
them be
right?
emo,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can kind of move on with your lesson, with your day, just to let them know that their mood isn't going to stop what's happening. Like she said, as long as it's not disruptive, it should be fine. We have kids who have tantrums all the time, and we say if they're not hurting themselves or anyone else, they can stay there, and they'll join us later.
Yeah.
Emo, the tantrum of middle school.
No, seriously. It's just a little bit quieter.
Sometimes.
Somewhat less kicking.
Yeah. Yep. I think I heard, maybe correctly or maybe not, Emily, in your question, also sort of like one piece is like an emo, moody factor, and maybe one piece is like people, like kids that want to keep talking about death or want to, like, the subject matter is not as helpful for where you're trying to go in the class, right? Like it's the poverty Horcrux class, and you have some kid that's still on like, doing avacadabra spells on people or whatever. Which I think is a slightly different question, or maybe it's just that it's the same question, but that kid's now becoming disruptive, or I wonder if there are ways to channel that kid's interest in goth or death or whatever in some way. Like, could you assign them a role in the class as, coming up with they know so much about dark arts that, could they be one of your aurors? And if they have an idea like that, invite them to jot it down and to jot down what they think a good way to counter it would be or something, are there creative ways that you could play with it imaginatively? I don't know.
I wonder
sometimes that
also
would work and sometimes it would not.
if somebody is sticking, I mean, I'm just brainstorming. If somebody's sticking on a topic that is kind of pulling the class away,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's a way to check in with the other students and say something like, is this something you want
Thank
to
you, Sheila.
follow? Is this how much more time should we give this part of the conversation? So that it's not just
Do a little
you?
peer.
Yeah, because in the community of the classroom thing, is it with, now, there's a couple ways that can misfire, obviously, right? So that it can create that split, for one, and the ostracized individual. And the other people in the class may prefer to talk about that than
Right.
the
And all of a sudden there's a whole class. Well, and I think in some ways that's where, if you can be sort of really creative and on your feet in the moment, it's an opportunity for the congregation as a curriculum piece, right? Like, well, if you have an entire class and what they really want to do is talk about, like, Cedric's death, yes, that's rough, right? Like, maybe that's fine. You're not going to finish the lesson that you had planned, but maybe there's actually
Something
a conversation to be had about that, and you as the teacher step in and say, wow, that's a really deep conversation. Let's use a go-round model for it, so that each person speaks and, we do the go-round and kind of check in on how we experience that, or how we experience death in our own lives, or whatever, right? Like, you still have to frame it a little bit, but, sometimes it's the way the class veers off into a different direction, and the teacher is able to go there in a productive way that can be even more meaningful. So,
Yes, with that big if we're ready to think on our feet.
that's right. Yeah. It is hard. Yeah. And it's especially hard if you're feeling annoyed by the behavior, right?
Yes,
All right.
for those of us who are not teachers by profession.
Or even perhaps
if you
those
are
who are.
Yeah.
I suspect it's possible that professional teachers are sometimes annoyed.
Well, I was thinking that they're better at thinking on their feet in the classroom
Yes,
environment.
that is
what I was
probably,
not. I was
yeah,
not thinking there
definitely.
was any lesson.
Okay, so we are actually now sort of at the point where, if it's helpful, we can break into class for just the teachers in a particular class to have a conversation about how things are going. We're a relatively small group today, so that may or may not be helpful, but maybe, Abby and Pam want to chat a little bit, and we are sort of closed with the presentation part of the training. We're ready for just some of that peer-to-peer conversation. Any final questions before we should, or you can go home. Any final questions?
Whenever
before we
you're
shut
done, I can turn off the video if you want.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Any final questions for ourselves or the good of the video, or
I've got a quick one.
someone is still watching? Yeah.
We're gonna do this again in January?
Sure. Yes, I think it depends how many teachers end up engaging now, and then how many teachers add in January. So it's sort of like a felt need piece.
Yeah.
Is this something that we need? We might do something different in January. Like maybe in January we're not gonna overview all the curriculum
Right.
and the first aid procedures, but we want to have an hour and a half or 2 hours where everybody comes together and we do just classroom management support or whatever.
Yeah, I'm thinking that could be helpful, and I'm thinking also that, at least from my perspective, it would be helpful to have another, teaching teams check-in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like set aside a Saturday or
Yes.
Sunday for teaching teams to check in.
I think that's absolutely right. Yes.
And it could be structured that way,
Mhm.
instead of structured like this.
Yeah, and you could do 45 minutes of classroom management learning all together, and then the teaching teams peel off and do 45 minutes of how are things going or whatever.
Yes. I would suggest that the teaching teams talk first, because then they'll have all sorts of questions to bring to the classroom manager.
What a great idea. Thanks. Love it.
Is the Seek team determining the lessons where it's just one class? There's just a 10:30.
I don't understand your.
The
What?
scheduling of the
When there's
classes
one
or
platform.
Yeah.
which platform?
Oh, like the Sundays when we have only one platform,
Right. but not a
like
multi-gen.
sorry, like after just literally hit myself in the face with my
Or like which
my pen cap.
which classes we teach at each of the
Got it.
platforms?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
In general, so yes, the answer is yes. Although in general, because of the way the two platforms line up, I suspect if we have a 10:30 where we have just one 10:30, like the Sunday after Thanksgiving is not that small a Sunday usually, but it's small enough that one platform makes sense. But it's not like nobody comes, right? Then I would think we would probably have all the classes just meeting at 10:30. We do have extra space. The social hall is not used currently. So I think we could house every.
Yeah, it's just 7th and 8th that wouldn't have anywhere to go.
Because neighboring faiths and
Yeah.
7th and
But they
Eighth
could
share.
go into the social hall. Yeah. So so I think we would be like, 1st through 3rd would go at 10:30 and 4th and 5th would go at 10:30 and we can also be in conversation and flexible about that. So if it turns out that actually like that you've talked with the kids or the parents and really nobody's going to be there, then great, let's do a combo special.
Or if you have no teachers. or
No
something.
teachers. If you have no teachers, we probably won't have the class. Yeah. So sometimes we're more flexible and we have like a 2-room schoolhouse model or a special art project model or for those Sundays. Was that your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another video.
All right. Thank you all so much.